We have a fight a-brewing. And it's about the NCAA. Now, we have talked about this sporadically the last couple of days. We've talked about the issues of whether or not college players should be able to monetize their name. And we've talked about that. Now, California and Florida are both advocating what is a version of a Fair Play Act in college sports. You might have heard about that, and maybe you don't know all the details on it. It's convoluted and whatnot. But it's not where, in California anyway, the schools would not pay the players. They would, in theory, make money from outside the university. So it would not cost the university, say, of Stanford or Cal or UCLA or USC or San Diego State. It wouldn't cost them any money. They would just be a car dealership wants to do a commercial with a UCLA basketball player, and they pay the guy for his image or whatever. That's how that would work. Well, now we have a plot twist in this particular story. What is the plot twist? I will tell you. California and Florida have gotten the ball rolling, and now Congress is like, hey, I can get some attention. I would like to have a piece of this. Action, boss. U.S. Representative Anthony Gonzalez, a former college football player at The Ohio State University. And I believe he played with the Colts as a brief NFL player. But he is now a U.S. representative in D.C., and he is planning to propose a new national law to give college athletes the opportunity to make endorsement money. Now, Gonzalez, he's a Republican from Ohio, and he believes that the federal government, needs to act for the best interest of the American people. That we now, even I wouldn't go that far, but that's where he's at in all this. That's where he's at in all this. Now, let us discuss now the question: what do you make of the plan for what would essentially, for lack of a better term, in layman's terms, be a national Fair Play Act for college sports? Now, my view on this: you've got the grifter, the boiling frog, and the Hail Mary. And we will put all of these together into a pot pie, a chicken pot pie, and we'll cook that at 420 degrees for about 10 minutes. About 10 minutes. Now, first of all, on the surface, I mean, this doesn't seem like a bad idea. It seems like a wonderful solution, because if you go state by state, you will have certain municipalities that will never sign off on letting college athletes get paid for their image. So this is a way to circumvent that disjointed plan, right? It's like having a jigsaw puzzle and not all the pieces fit together if you go state by state and whatnot in that regard. So I have long been an advocate of this particular, some version of this plan. I've complained it is patently absurd that the NCAA has been able to get away with this game, the shell game. It's the greatest con in modern sports, that you can run a semi-professional sports league and have people say, despite those billion-dollar TV deals, how dare you even think of allowing the athletes that are playing in these games that are broadcast on national television get a piece of the action. I mean, it's offensive. It is absolutely offensive for many, many people, and I know why that is. And to me, that's the most maddening part of this. I mean, people, I don't feel bad for the people. I understand why they feel this way, those that are on the other side of this issue, because you've been brainwashed, and it happens. It happens to the best of us, right? And the NCAA has brainwashed literally generations of people because of a powerful marketing campaign. The term student athlete, talked about this sporadically over the years, the term student athlete, which gets thrown around a ton by those that say their student athletes don't pay them, was invented out of thin air. Those two words conjoined, invented out of thin air. Now, the backstory on this, there was a grifter named Walter Byers. Walter Byers, looked him up, Byers, the first ever executive director of the NCAA. He was the brains behind the con. He was the lead dog in all this. Now, why? I'll tell you why. Because in order to help the NCAA in its fight against workman's comp insurance claims, because players were getting injured, maimed, deformed, crippled, and dying playing football, they came up with this term. It started in the 1950s. Byers cooked up the term student athlete in the 1950s to get out of paying, yes, spoiler alert, a workers' comp benefit package to injured players. In particular, someone named Ray Dennison. Now, he was dead because he died on the field. And the widow of Ray Dennison, who the guy that had died from a head injury he received while playing college football in Colorado at a school called Fort Lewis A&M. So the widow, filed a workers' comp claim saying, hey, my husband there was playing college football and he injured himself and he died on the field and that was his job and I deserve a little compensation. So how did that work out? Did his football scholarship make the fatal collision a work-related accident, right? Because that was his job. He was to get the scholarship, you had to play football. Well, the Colorado Supreme Court, back in I believe it was the late 1950s, early 60s, around that time, the Colorado Supreme Court ultimately agreed with the weasel term student athlete, and ever since then, that has been the precedent going forward to help the NCAA get out of legal battles. The term student athlete is intentionally, deliberately ambiguous. That's how they do it. But again, I mean, people have been brainwashed because of years of commercials during the NCAA tournament and football games, and so I understand why, if you're uneducated on this, you would think that. Now, secondly, in theory, federal oversight, good idea, right? But remember the law of unintended consequences, because it's a much smoother situation when you talk about this, because you would have one guideline, not 35 different states with different rules and all that stuff. The NCAA, here's the story on the NCAA. They were started with the best of intentions. I truly believe that. Teddy Roosevelt was the president in the early 1900s, and he formed what has become this 800-pound gorilla, this bureaucracy, in 1906 because of college football players dying, mainly from the flying wedge. But they really took the barbaric nature of football in the early days, the rugged nature of early football. They made it a blood sport. There were people dying every week playing football, college football in America. So, and this was a problem, and there were schools were dropping football and whatnot. So Teddy Roosevelt stepped in. He put a blue ribbon panel together, and they formed what ultimately became the NCAA. And for the first roughly 40 years of the NCAA, they did not use the term student athlete. And then slowly, and it took about 40 years, and then it started to change. There was a sea change. And they started adding more rules and regulations. And now it is like the DMV rule book or guidebook and whatnot. It is insane. They have over-regulated college athletics, and you can be suffocated from all the red tape. But they did it as a boiling frog, meaning it was a gradual increase. Every year you had a couple more rules, and then, ta-da, you got a problem. I mean, very rarely do these rules get adjusted. And talk about a federal law. Once you have a federal law, how many times do they get rid of federal laws? I mean, hardly ever, right? I mean, I guess there's a once-in-a-blue-moon situation, but it's very rare that happens. Let's hear from Draymond Green. Now, Draymond Green went on television this week, got up very early to talk about this particular issue, and he was singing the praises. Now, he's talking about the California rule, and he was singing the praises of that.
This is a huge step in the right direction. It's kind of ironic to me that the NCAA will continue to fight this, and no one's taking money out of their pocket directly. Now, indirectly, yes, because some sponsors will go directly to the source, which is being the athlete, but it's not taking money out of their ticket sales. It's not taking money out of the team sponsorships or university sponsorships that they sell, and yet the dictatorship wants to continue to go by the same system that's been broken for several years.
All right, so a couple things here. Now, it bothers me that I agree with Draymond Green because he's the guy that was offended by the word owner. He doesn't like owners using that term, so it's beyond crazy town, in my opinion. But anyway, here's more from Draymond Green, and he expanded on that last part of the soundbite, talking about the dictatorship.
You know, it's their way or no way. You know, it's if a kid is broke in college, can't find food, don't have the money to get food, don't have the time to get a job, that kid is not allowed to take money from pretty much anywhere outside of family, or you're ineligible, you're suspended. But yet these colleges can go, or the NCAA can go and make a ton of money off these student athletes. That's a dictatorship. I'm going to tell you exactly what I want you to do. I'm going to take all of the profit. And if you do this, then you have to deal with the consequences.
Well, I mean, not to touch up his work there, but it's a by choice situation, right? I mean, you are choosing to be fair here to the NCAA. You are choosing to play college sports at a high level, so you have to follow the rules of the NCAA. I don't agree with the NCAA, but oh God help me! I'm LeBron James and Draymond Green, and I'm on the side of the aisle with these guys. What have I done? Have I lost my way? All right, final point here. All right, final thought. I have heard a lot of people that I consider pretty intelligent in the sports world who are so they know that this is a unwinnable argument to say that you should not allow the players to earn money from their likeness. So now they're like, well, we should just get rid of the rule where you have to go to college and we should just have them go right to the pros, which is essentially like, I don't want to pay these guys. I'd rather just have them all go to the pros, and then we don't have to worry about it, and we can continue the ruse. We continue the scam. I mean, it's so dumb. It's so desperate, these people that are saying that, making that counter argument. Now, the NCAA is going to have to eventually make peace with the idea that college star athletes are going to make money from their image. They're going to have to deal with that because the NCAA, as we know it, is on the brink of disaster. Now, Ed O'Bannon did not win big a couple years back, but this is the thing that started the fire. Right? He's the arsonist, if you will, that started this, and now here we are years later. He and Sonny Vaccaro, wonderful radio guest, Sonny Vaccaro, shoe guy, made Michael Jordan when he was at Nike, and he's also behind this as well. But the cat is out of the bag. So you might as well embrace some concept because, now I understand, the NCAA has already hired an army of $3,000 an hour lawyers to exhaust all legal options. And there is always the Hail Mary. There's always the Hail Mary chance that this goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court filled with heavily college-educated intellectuals who are book smart, and they're like, I like the status quo. I don't think this is what we should be doing. So there's always that Hail Mary, but so much movement in this direction. I believe ultimately that is what's going to happen.